it keeps getting 51% attacked.
Continuing with the videos, I love the 10 of 10 multisig on TestNet. Was there anything that you learned from that experience, or even a better way to go at it, after testing out all those devices and doing a 10 of 10, do you have a preference for how you'd set up maybe a 2 of 3 multisig or a 3 of 5?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'll just say first off, this was just for testing purposes only. I would never recommend anyone ever store any real Bitcoin with a 10 of 10 multisig. It's very, very dangerous to do so. And, there's a pretty high likelihood that you'll get locked out of your coins. But it was fun to do it on testnet. And of course, if there's anything you want to test out, there's no better place to do it than on testnet. Hopefully they'll get, so right now things are kind of in limbo with testnet 3. I don't know if you've heard, but they're trying to migrate people over to testnet 4. And so hopefully,
On
yeah,
that
go ahead.
quick side note, do you know why the fees on testnet 3 are so outrageously high?
Yeah, because it keeps getting 51% attacked. So yeah, I mean, basically, I think Jameson, Lop, and a few others are like 51% attacking it to try to incentivize people to, stop using it. Yeah, so people are paying ridiculously high fees on testnet 3 to get their transactions included, so that when things get 51% attacked, like hopefully they still get included in whatever reorgs happen or whatever. But yeah, anyways, things are a mess over on testnet 3, so I've kind of stopped using it, and it's been unfortunate because that means that I don't really like. There's not much tutorial content I can make without spending real Bitcoin, and I don't like spending real Bitcoin. So my tutorial content's been kind of put on hold until I figure out how to use testnet 4 and get some testnet sats on that version. So eventually I will, and then I'll start making that content again. But yeah, in this interim, I'm kind of just waiting to see how the cards fall. I'm sure they'll figure it out eventually. And also, I think we have D down there. I don't know if he knows the answer to this, but all of the signing devices are going to have to be updated to enable support for testnet 4 when that becomes more stable. So I'm waiting also for firmware updates to enable testnet 4 eventually. One thing I want to do, like one of the questions I put out recently and nobody answered, so I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this, but I was wondering, like, how do you run a testnet 4 node? Like, can you run it without running a mainnet node alongside it? Can you just like mine testnet 4 blocks? Do you need a significant amount of hash rate? Because one of the things I want to do is just like, if I could just mine like one testnet 4 block, then I'd have 50 testnet Bitcoin, and I'd be all set, right? Like that's more than enough to do all my testing. So like, I've got an old S9 just sitting on the shelf. Like maybe I could point that S9 to testnet 4 and just mine a block, and then I'd have enough. But anyways, I haven't figured that out yet. So that's another project that I need to work on at some point. Okay, but anyways, getting back to the 10 of 10 multisig. Sorry, that was a big tangent. Yeah, the 10 of 10 multisig. So the reason I did it involved all of the signing devices that I currently have. So I'm kind of a collector of these signing devices, and part of it's because I just want to know how they all work, so that if anyone asks any questions about them, I can readily answer and help them out. But because I have so many, I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if I made a giant multisig with all of them? And I wanted to see if it would even work, right? Like, could all of these devices work together to make a giant multisig? And then the other part of it that was kind of interesting was I made it initially on Sparrow Wallet, and then um, I recovered the same multisig wallet on Nunchuk Wallet. So I wanted to see how interoperable the multisig wallets were between both software wallets, right, between Sparrow and Nunchuck. And so in doing so, what I learned was that they are fully interoperable, right? Like, so if you set up a multi-sig in Sparrow, or if you set up a multi-sig in Nunchuck, you can take that wallet and you can, recover it in uh, either or, and probably other software wallets as well. Well, I haven't tested out Spectre or Electrum, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of those ones also work. So it's pretty cool. Like, the fact that multisig is it's reached the point where it's like pretty stable um, as a feature amongst wallets and interoperable. So you can like lift your wallet up from one uh, app and then bring it over to the next, and you'll have all your information there. Another thing I learned, which was interesting, is you can partially sign a transaction in one of your wallets and then sign the rest of it in the other. So, um, what I did as an example was as one of the signers, I had a tap signer, right? And I don't have like the reader, the card reader for my laptop. So the only way I could sign with that tap signer was on my phone, right, using Nunchuck. So what I did as an example was I made a transaction and I signed with the tap signer on my phone, and then I exported that partially signed Bitcoin transaction, that PSBT file, and I loaded it into Sparrow. And then when I loaded it into Sparrow, it had that tap signer signature already there. So then I was able to sign with the rest of the signers and broadcast it, and it all worked. So that was another thing that was kind of cool and interesting to experience, is just the ability to kind of like pass around a partially signed Bitcoin transaction between different wallet softwares and be able to sign it from different places, and for it all to work and come together in that way too. And so I don't know. I'll wrap this all up by just saying, you know, I think testnet is such a cool place to just experiment, and it's very low risk, right? Like zero risk because it's dealing with fake Bitcoin, so there's no like worry of losing funds. Um, but it works in the exact same way that regular Bitcoin works, right? It works in the same ways that mainnet works, and so it allows you to do things like build these interesting wallet ideas, or maybe you just want to get experience with using a 2 of 3 multisig, like a regular one. You can do that on testnet. And once you're comfortable and confident with that setup on testnet, then you can set it up on mainnet, and you'll be a lot more confident as you're doing that, right? So it's unfortunate that testnet 3 is getting deprecated and like it's kind of in this weird state. But once testnet 4 is up and running and fully supported across all of your apps and signing devices, then I'll be recommending people do that with testnet 4. Um, yeah. Any other questions? I don't know if I missed
So
anything.
with no, no, yeah. With that, I'm just curious if someone came and said, "Hey, they want to set up a 2 of 3 multi-sig." Do you have favorite devices from that experience that you maybe recommend someone start with? And would you recommend they start in Sparrow or Nunchuck or maybe somewhere else?
Yeah. So I mean, my favorite device for any of these more advanced types of features like multi-sig are the various cold cards. So either the Mark IV or the Q are both great devices, especially when you're dealing with multi-sig stuff. So I'd probably use at least one of those for one of the signers. Um, I personally like to have a multi-vendor multi-sig, meaning I'm using signers from different vendors. The reason you do that is because you just you want to make sure that that you're not going to get any malicious you know uh, collaboration between the signers where your funds might get rugged, and that's very very low probability, by the way. So I'm not trying to like fud I'm not trying to fud things here. um, but one thing that you might start to worry about, again, like the devil on your shoulder just whispering in your ear, like all these fud things, is like, well, what if the vendor that I went with, is somehow leaking the private key over time of my multisig? Um, and if you have a multi-vendor multisig, if you've got one of your signers like is a cold card and the other one is maybe a passport and maybe the other one's a jade or the other one's a seed signer, or any other one, right? Literally, almost all of the mainstream signing devices support multi-sig now. So you can, I think I'll just name the ones that I used, right? So you could have a cold card, you could have a ledger, you could have a trezor, you could have a jade, keystone, passport. What am I missing? Seed signer, probably the Crux. I don't have one of those, but I believe that one also supports multi-sig. So there's like the options are there's tons and tons of options out there now. But whatever you choose for that second and third signer, if they're from different vendors, then the likelihood of two of those vendors cooperating to rug your funds is extremely, extremely unlikely, right? Like practically zero chance that that would ever happen. It's already, yeah, very unlikely that a single trusted vendor of your signing device like CoinKite is going to secretly rug your funds somehow. Like I don't think that's going to happen. But if you're at all concerned with that, now there's a way to protect yourself against that by doing a multi-vendor multi-sig, right? So it might be something you look into doing as you stack more Bitcoin and as you kind of take your security more seriously.